proposals put forward by China regarding the ongoing freeze of Russia's war against Ukraine serve as further evidence that Beijing is fully prepared to play its independent role in resolving conflicts that are of utmost importance to the Western world and hold significant implications for global stability and security. And the position of the entity in question may differ significantly from the position taken by the United States and other leading Western countries in a manner that is of considerable significance. Without a doubt, not by chance. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China made a deliberate decision to publicize its new proposals just prior to the World Summit in Switzerland, strategically timing the release for maximum impact. The main objective of this summit was primarily to demonstrate the unity of approaches between Ukraine and Western countries regarding the way in which the war in Ukraine should ultimately come to an end. Unity of approaches based on the principles of international law and justice, on respect for the rules and regulations. And this is the scenario that should have been presented to those countries of the Global South that are willing to actively participate in this highly important and impactful meeting of great significance. However, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China has made the decision that, on the eve of the summit, it is possible to present its own alternative political program as an alternative to the existing one. And it is not only about publishing documents. A special representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China visited multiple capitals of prominent countries in the Global South and discussed Chinese proposals with them in order to seek their input and cooperation. The fact that the Chinese Foreign Policy Department made its position public shortly after this visit precisely indicates that the Chinese representative coordinated common approaches with his counterparts in the capitals of leading countries of the Global South, as evidenced by the decision of the Chinese Foreign Policy Department to make its position public. And thus, we have the opportunity to engage in a conversation not just about the Chinese alternative, but also about two distinct approaches to understanding how the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine can ultimately come to an end. If the Western countries and Ukraine would like to see respect for the principles of international law as the ultimate goal in ending the war, in Beijing, the primary emphasis of the discussions is on the concept of freezing the conflict as a temporary measure to address the situation. In other words, Ukraine does not receive any guarantees that it will be able to restore its territorial integrity in the future, leaving its prospects uncertain. Ukraine is not receiving any genuine security guarantees. It is pertaining to the ceasefire agreement between the parties involved. In this way, the Russian Federation is granted the opportunity to resume the conflict whenever President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, deems that his country is ready for a new offensive, thus enabling him to take action based on his assessment of the situation. It is evident that this particular kind of ceasefire is not the ultimate end or resolution of the ongoing war between the involved parties. This is probably a program that is most likely designed for the purpose of continuing the war. It appears that neither Chinese leaders nor their partners in Global South countries are significantly concerned about this matter of great importance. And above all else, it is of utmost importance to note that China is not committed to the idea of respecting international law in any way, shape, or form. The approach in and of itself seems rather strange. When it comes to the need for the unification of China and Taiwan, Beijing specifically talks about the principle of international law, emphasizing its importance and relevance in this context. They insist that other states should respect and adhere to the principle of one China without any exceptions. The one China principle is specifically and precisely associated solely and exclusively with respect for and adherence to international law. If we grant permission to Russia to violate this international law, then the principle of one China will cease to exist and lose its validity completely. However, for the People's Republic of China, something completely different appears to be a priority at this moment. First and foremost, it is crucial not to allow Russia to lose the conflict with Ukraine and to take necessary actions to prevent such an outcome. Secondly, in order to prevent the West from demonstrating that countries like the United States and member states of the European Union are capable of upholding the priorities of international law in the near future, thereby undermining their own influence and authority on the global stage. Thirdly, to demonstrate that it is China, not the United States, that is the force capable of uniting leading countries in their vision of how fundamentally important conflicts can be resolved, thus highlighting China's role as a unifying power in global affairs. In addition, to demonstrate China's capability of creating alternative platforms for negotiations and showcasing its self-reliance in this regard. The concept of organizing a conference involving diplomats from Ukraine and Russia was proposed in Beijing in light of the ongoing preparations for the Peace Summit in Switzerland, with the aim of fostering dialogue and finding common ground between the two parties. And this is despite the fact that the president of Ukraine himself opposes the participation of Russian representatives in the first summit. Ukraine is of the opinion that the participating countries in the summit should establish their own position and subsequently present it to Russia. Yes, it is evident that such an idea most probably resembles political fiction, because in Russia nobody will take seriously the outcomes of the discussions that will take place in Switzerland as something of significance or importance. However, if the countries that are gathering at the Peace Forum are able to reach an agreement on a specific and challenging common position, it would undoubtedly represent a significant diplomatic setback for Russia. This is exactly the diplomatic defeat that China wishes to avoid at all costs, as it is of utmost importance to them. In the event that two positions are put forth during the discussions taking place in Switzerland, one can be absolutely certain that the final document of the World Summit, even if it is formally adopted at this conference, will not contain any rigid formulations and will undeniably leave the impression that the meeting participants are either unable or unwilling to come to agreements on fundamental issues of utmost importance. Following that, the political initiative for further regulation of military actions will be passed to China, shifting the responsibility for regulation to the People's Republic of China and its plan to freeze conflicts. Thus, it can be observed that China is prepared to confront the West on multiple diplomatic fronts. In the Asia-Pacific region and in Europe, where Xi Jinping meets with leaders of countries who would like to ensure political lobbying of Chinese interests on the continent, for example, with the presidents of Serbia and Hungary, as well as at the World Forum in Switzerland. These meetings are crucial for maintaining diplomatic relations and advancing China's influence in these regions. China itself is likely to abstain from participating in this conference, but representatives of those countries visited by the special envoy of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China are capable of becoming real representatives of Chinese and therefore Russian diplomatic interests during this meeting. The forthcoming meeting between the President of China and the President of Russia, scheduled during Vladimir Putin's upcoming visit to Beijing, will only serve to underscore the commonality of priorities and views on how the political process should develop amidst Russia's ongoing and controversial war against Ukraine. Join this channel and take advantage of its sponsorship features. Wishing you the best of luck with it.